Oh, hi. Um, Hi, everyone. Obviously, things are vaguely hectic here, and I'm not sure if Oliver is going to start going crazy, but I wanted to speak a little bit on a topic. I was just watching an interesting little short by Mavius Lynn, who has a channel. I'll put her in the link to her short video piece in the comments. And she was talking about how she had been looking at some books about Thelema. She's a Thelemist. I don't know what you call it, a Thelema person, and occultist, and very into researching and writing, and as well as practice. And she said that she had found in a footnote information that made it clear that Rose, Mr. Crowley's wife, was a lot more involved in the creation of Thelema than she had realized. And it's very interesting. I'm glad that she came across that. She had also a beautiful painting that she had made of this red triangle symbol. But most of me was like, no shit. Because there, I don't want to say this, in esoteric groups, in creative groups, which, occult or spiritual groups are, creative groups, you are going to have different people playing different types of roles, and certain roles are more public or more considered to be the leaders or essential by society at large. This falls in with a lot of our prejudices that we have from coming through like a capital status roles that people get in society, right? Gendered roles and gendered forms of work and so on. What the capitalist structure is going to reward financially versus what they're not. And so if we're in a group and we come from these type of social backgrounds, we're going to end up with a lot of the same prejudices about who's important and who's not. I had first read about, because I've never been like a Crowley person or done any Thelema or anything like that, tried to emanate the phallus of the divine feminine in any way, or the whore of Babylon. So I first read about Crowley in Colin Wilson's book, The Occult, which is really fun to read and very interesting to have, because he cites the sources and then states his own conclusions and insights and analysis on what was going on with these people, like, for example, Rasputin and stuff. But he talks about Crowley too. And to me, it's very obvious that Crowley's running around doing all this stuff. He sees Rose. They're like, let's go get married. Let's do this together, which, of course, marriage is actually a ritual, in case people haven't noticed. And right, you're creating a new family, you're collaborating, you're creating this social unit that allows you to do certain things in society, to have certain rights and privileges that other people don't have. And then goes to Egypt, and bingo, suddenly he's channeling all this intense information when Rose is there, right? And she's like I believe it's that she's the first one that kind of twigs and is kind of like, okay, I'm around these objects and something's happening. And then he encourages that, right? He didn't do that by himself. He did all that, and he got the big breakthroughs when he was with this particular person. So I don't know. I grew up around a lot of artists, and I did a lot of music when I was growing up. And you realize that, a lot of these efforts are collaborative, right? If you get let's say, a conductor, like a music conductor of an orchestra coming in, they're going to be able to do different things with like the New York Philharmonic Orchestra than they are with, let's say, Berkeley High School Jazz Band. Actually, Berkeley High School Jazz Band is well known for being like incredibly good and adept, known worldwide. But let's say Castro Valley High Jazz Band, right? Which is also pretty good, but it's not in the same league, right? you need this to bring out different people to bring things out of one another. So it's really no surprise. There tends to be a lot of emphasis in, especially kind of, well, Eastern, many esoteric traditions, spiritual traditions. For example, Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, similar thing. Wicca, Thelema, like Masonic lodges and stuff, where you have this whole idea of the line of transmission and having certain things preserved. Now, if you read George Hansen, Tricks in the Paranormal, you'll find that, this requires a certain amount of social stability, right? If you're going to preserve documents, you have a place in which to preserve them, right? That means that you have to be able to buy a building, buy land, pay taxes, pay rent, keep the utilities going, right? Make any repairs, all that type of thing. So you're going to tend to have these type of organizations are going to be bought into society at large, let's say, and partake of society's general structures and ideas about hierarchy and access and what is legitimate, right? If you write something down that's more legitimate than going into the forest and communing with a chipmunk. No, they're not. They're actually what 7-line ground squirrels. Around here we have they look and they act like chipmunks, but they're actually a type of a squirrel. Be that as it may. If you were out there communing with them, you'd know more about this. And it's surprising to me because Mavis Lynn is very knowledgeable, has a lot of experience, has read quite deeply, and has spent a lot of time thinking about this. But, we're all in this patriarchal capitalistic soup, right? And also, I would say the whole aristocratic monarch type soup, because a lot of these ideas about transmission and status go back to like ideas about monarchy, aristocracy. For example, in Tibetan Buddhism, right? Which is, I don't even think it's problematic. It's just kind of dumb. There you go. So I wanted to give you just a couple of resources. I mean, this is, again, as problematic as Dion Fortune is, and as much as she has some really outdated and just wrong ideas about race, class, and status. She writes extensively about these type of subtle, energetic, and material relationships in esoteric working groups, right? If you have someone who is like super, like I used to sit with Leslie Temple Thurston, right? Super plugged in, just like, I mean, literally, her thing, she'll like look at you, you meditate with her, and you'll learn an incredible amount just through being in her presence. People like that, right? They need people, first of all, to take care of like the materialist stuff. Like if you're going to have 300 people come and sit and meditate someplace, right? You need seats for their butts. You need a situation where it's going to be pretty quiet, where you can have a decent sound system. You need to have facilities for parking, transportation. How are you going to get the word out? Bathrooms, right? You need to have enough bathrooms for people. Look at what happened at Woodstock '99. Right? That's when these things go wrong. So you need, if you have these type of people, for them to get their message out, right? You need to be able to have people that can take care of all that material stuff. As well, you need people that can, and Dion Fortune talks about this too, people who can support them in the subtle endeavors which they're undertaking, right? Every time I saw lamas that would come to give empowerments at the Tibetan Buddhist Awam Choden center that I was living at, you'd see that they had people around them that would just like sit and do mantra with them, like beforehand. So you have like the practical side, and then you have people that kind of help connect you to a certain transmission, or just kind of hold that space with you. Um, and these people are very often way in the background, but they're incredibly important to the work. And some of them want that recognition, some of them don't. In some cases, the tradition or organization is a lot more focused on the person who's kind of like the front, the visible front of the organization or leader, rather than other people. I talk also at that, I don't want to say, meditation center, Awam Chodan, the Rinpoche they're really still there. Lama Kunga had a girlfriend for a number of years who was living there, and she did a lot of practical work. He depended on her energetically very much, and she also was a Caucasian, well-educated woman. And she was I learned so much from her. She was excellent, an excellent teacher, especially for beginners. She'd welcome people in and she'd give you like a little kernel that you could chew on, right? To help get you into the practice. Because when I was there and the Tibetan Buddhists I was around, it's very much a lot about, okay, find it. There's this whole big world of all the Tantra and all these practices. But how about right now? How can you cultivate the desire to help sentient beings? Maybe you could do, a mantra, or maybe you could pray before your food, or maybe next time you get a drink of water, you could think about all the people that help bring that water to you. Like here in the United States, right? We have on the whole very safe drinking water. Well, that's due to the efforts of many people. So you could thank them and hold the intention that all sentient beings can have the water and nourishment that they need. So she was great at that, man. Like anyone come through, she's like, they're very welcoming, easy to understand. Here's a little bit to get you going, because you just got to get people started and get that karmic ball rolling. But she was never acknowledged, and yeah, she had like no official role in the organization. And finally, she went on retreat, and she's still on retreat these many years later in San Francisco. Yeah, so especially if you're a woman or you're the type of person that doesn't have that type of high status thing, like a lot of these people, if you have groups, if you have someone come in who is like has a PhD, or they have a lot of money, or these other things, it's like or they're Steven Seagal, right? You can use that status and visibility and everything to help further the ends of the organization, so that those people are going to get more kind of outward recognition. Where you have these people that are like the heart and soul of driving things forward, like Judith, right? Judith Skinner at Awam Chodan. And they, like, if you're in, then but to the outside world, and it's kind of, it's a load of horseshit, in my opinion, right? Let's see. Leslie Temple Thurston was interesting too, because she always had a organization, and still does, for people to volunteer. And if you are a volunteer, then it's known that you're a volunteer. You're thanked for your activity. And then she ended up developing a relationship with her partner, Brad Laughlin, who is now the more the public-facing the public-facing face of the organization, Corelight. And but yeah, she would acknowledge him as her partner, and have him out there and thank him for his help. And he would start to take on more and more of speaking and teaching. As well as other people who have come up through the organization. So it was more structured there, and also just, more of a public acknowledgement that, yes, this person is important to me, and they're helping me in my work, even in ways that you may not see or be aware of. As opposed to just kind of trying to pretend like, hi, I'm just here like an emanation of whatever, and I'm doing it all myself. It's like, no. Partly, I think, in Leslie's case, because she's very concerned with making practical material change in the world. So like making things better that people can see, like helping with, animal conservation, wildlife conservation, And they have done programs to help low-income children, orphans, AIDS orphans. She has been involved in that for many years. So trying to not just kind of like have this esoteric knowledge, but it's like, okay, how can we go full Mahayana and try and make life better for people who are in trouble. Jesus actually said something similar. It's like, hey, how about, people that are hungry, give them some food, or if they're naked, some clothes, go visit people in prison, right? It's not, well, I guess it still is a radical idea, but it's not like a new idea. But one thing I appreciated about Leslie is being explicit about, and her organization Core Light is to be explicit about what your goals are, and it needs a lot of people working together in different roles and different capacities. And it's all important to come together and make these changes. But anyway, getting back to Deanne Fortune, this is why I recommend her work to be read, with critically. I mean, everything you're reading, you should be reading critically. But she addresses a lot, certain dynamics that tend to come up in various organizations, and how they can be helpful or hurtful to certain people. If you read Tales of Dr. Tavener, it's like all these crazy stories, very wild. But she talks about how, again, certain esoteric dynamics that can come up in groups of people, even spontaneously. In her books on cosmic marriage, which is like very gender essentialist on one level. On another level, it's like, okay, there's these kind of forces that are kind of like masculine and kind of like feminine, but you can have a body that's going to be tending more towards one or towards the other, but then the intellect can be like a different story. And the emotions, she has like this 7-level model of the human being, right? So emotionally, the male body in her schema is more associated with kind of a more feminine emanation. So she's like, we're all, constructed of these varieties of kind of more masculine or more feminine leaning traits, basically, it's like everyone's like I apologize for my aphasia. Right, the people are a combination of all these varieties of different tendencies. She also talks a lot about, especially in like Tales of Dr. Tavener and Psychic Self-Defense, that you have different dynamics that come up, and not everyone fits in the same box, right? Some people are really strong intellectually. This affects them physically certain ways. Everyone's different, right? Basically. There are certain kind of things that tend to occur, but everyone's different, and how you could kind of analyze that in terms of creating like a stable situation where everyone could be uplifted, or learn more and become more aware and adept and hopefully more harmonious within the group. Or you can have other situations that tend to be more, it's like certain people are getting all the glory and all the adulation and everything out of the situation, but they're using it by kind of like taking from and drawing from other people who aren't getting really anything out of it, or are being thwarted in their own goals. And so, how to try and recognize these type of situations beforehand, and how to, just like give people credit where credit is due. I mean, I think that's one of the best things that you can do to kind of get yourself started in these type of things. She has that book, The Sea Priestess, where she also talks about how basically, if you're a person, if you're not just like a random hedgehog watching this video and captivated by what I have to say, Uh, and you want to try and achieve certain goals, right? One way to do this is to kind of visualize the type of person you would be in enacting, being able to achieve those goals, and having those skills and the resources and the knowledge and the type of relationships with people who would be supportive. And go into like a new situation. There's the whole thing. I was thinking about this because again with music, because I learned a lot about teaching, first of all, from music, because I started playing tuba when I was like 9, and we had like a district wide, and we had orchestra and band and jazz band and brass quartet and pep band and all this stuff. We were just like, I mean, it's like 10 plus hours every week, like tooting away. And different teachers had very different teaching styles. But we had a guy that I grew up with, Jeff Beal. And from the time he was small, because that's when I met him when I was 9, and we were always together because he played trumpet. So, all this brass people were always together, running around and practicing. And he was always very talented, very creative, very ambitious. And I could tell that it was frustrating for him to be around us, because we were kind of, we didn't have that same drive as he had. And then we ended up playing together in Oakland Symphony Youth Orchestra. Later on, he has ended up with a successful composing and jazz trumpet career. He's won a couple of Grammys for like music on popular TV shows and everything. And, I've done a lot of albums and stuff like that. But I noticed that when he talks about growing up and stuff, he doesn't talk about Castrovelli. Now I was, we were all in that group for like 10 years. And we were playing like together, like in each other's faces constantly. But I think that, and I think he was right, for him to achieve what he wanted to achieve, he needed to get into a different circle of people who had different, we're just a bunch of kids from Castrovelli. But like national level, international level musicians and composers, and to really bring out and for him to express what he wanted to. And this is a similar thing, although she does it, via magic and just kind of in a more one-on-one, much more kind of pressure cooker situation in Dion Fortune's The Sea Priestess, because it's this lady, and she's like, well, of course, as you do, she's interested in becoming immortal kind of priestess for the feminine principle, going back to Inanna and beyond. So she meets up with this guy that that they haven't had any type of relationship before, and she's like, I think I can help you get what you want if you treat me as this person or being that I'm trying to become. So they have this big kind of a torrid, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, creative relationship. Yeah, she ends up going on to the next guy. And he ends up getting out of this creepy situation with his family and marrying a lady who's also pretty, they're equals and can have this kind of nice, more stable but creative relationship that's like kind of plugged in. So, yeah, but a lot of these people that are playing vital roles in these organizations get kind of neglected because it's not as exciting as someone like Crowley. Although I have to, recently, I don't know why, this is going on a long time, sorry. I was thinking a lot about, because it sounds like, Crowley, wow, what did he do? He was like a mountain climber and did all this stuff that sounds very exciting. And I was thinking, what? It never really appealed to me, but then, like especially recently, my brother has been telling me a lot of these stories about ill-advised, crazy, hyper-competitive and dangerous things that our ancestors did in our family. Both my grandfathers were car and motorcycle mechanics, and my mom's dad was a national champion amateur motorcycle. He did uphill racing during the 1930s. Everyone has tons. There's like all these trophies of his around the house. And he worked as a pit crew in the Indianapolis 500 for many years. My dad's dad was also an excellent mechanic, and he was like super competitive. It's like I was thinking, I was wondering, like they would get so uptight around us when we were like, especially getting to be teenagers, and then it was like, oh yeah, because they could see we were going to do all the stupid stuff that they did. My grandfather and my grandma used to go camping a lot in the summer. They were on a fixed income. And one year they were in Yosemite, and it was like August, September, really hot. So my grandfather would always, he was like 6'2", those striking kind of piercing Paul Newman, kind of icy blue, gray blue eyes, pretty solidly built. But he'd just wear like these woven boxer shorts because he would, working class guy, and it was hot. So he'd just like get to be down in his shorts with his horn-rimmed glasses on, reading the newspaper, right? So he's reading the newspaper at this camp, like one of the picnic table that they have in campsites, and they were on a fixed incomes. Now he was like in his late 60s. He'd already retired, so probably, I don't know, maybe around 70. And so it was Saturday, so they had splurged. They had their steaks, right, that they had bought, and cooking on the grill, and he sees a bear coming towards him, and he's just like, I know I shouldn't, but he's just like, he's been looking forward to these steaks like all week. So he ended up shooing a bear off using the newspaper from his grilling steaks when he's like 7 years old, in boxer shorts and no shoes. He never wore shoes. That's why I don't wear shoes either. We all have these big toes. But yeah, so I was thinking, why do I not find Crowley impressive? It's like, well, because everyone I knew was growing up doing all this crazy stuff and being very competitive and really excelling at their chosen fields of activity. I'm going to try and line this up. I feel scattered. I've been having a lot of stresses. My mom fell. She's okay, but it's stressful. And then I've been having a little bit of I think, lupus flare up and fevers and all that type of exciting things. But another resource, and I feel terrible because I can't remember the book, but kind of, I think like eco Wiccans, like not Gardnerian spanky spanky Wiccans, but people that are like more like kind of Northern California, like Scott Cunningham a little bit maybe. People who are like Wiccans, so that we can go be out in the woods and do woods things. They will often have a big emphasis on group dynamics. And there was a really good book that I had read, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. And it was almost kind of like a workbook, but it's like, okay, if you want to lead a group or get a group together that's doing witchcraft or Wicca, here's what you want to look out for as far as group dynamics. And here's how to keep an eye to make sure that, everyone's putting in, a fair amount of work, and that no one's getting shafted, that people are getting what they, what is valuable to them out of the group work. These are ways that you can kind of, I don't want to say, and they do this in a lot of Wicca curriculums. The idea that, you take people and you're spreading the work out so that you have, a curriculum, right? Like people need to learn how to, call the corners, call the corners, every corner in my house. I love you. Be able to channel, scry, all these various capacities, things that are going to be useful to people who are working in a group. They're your basic skills, so that, heaven forbid, or this happens too, if you have something comes up, someone's ill, or they have other commitments, right? People are going to be able to take over these various roles in the group and develop themselves too, so that you have these capacities that are going to be useful. Um, and move forward with that. And I really wish that I could remember the name of that book, because I thought it was useful and it was very practical and kind of tedious. If people are making rotas, or getting together and checking in with how everyone's feeling. I mean, it sounds boring, but it's like the grown-up thing to do. And if you want to be involved in a group where you're going to be able to develop spiritually or in the occult practices, then right, you're going to want to be able to look at the group as a whole and see not just, I mean, that's the whole idea of the occult, right? It's hidden, right? When I was up at Awam Chodam, Lama Kunga's relationship with Judith was hidden, right? But if you're an occultist or an esotericist, you're supposed to be able to see those things and realize, well, should they really be hidden or not? Because I don't know, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and there's a lot of work that goes on internally and in the subtle planes. And if you're really going to be going forward with this, if you're going to be talking about these things with other people, I think the more of it needs to become explicit, because otherwise it can very easily become exploitive. And just, I don't see the need of it. And to me, this whole type of idea of ignoring certain people because it doesn't fit with your fantasy or the idea about what it would be like to have these various empowerments or rituals, it's immature, and it's gonna hold you back, right? And it's not very radical. It's like, it's like what was the whole cliche about, how watch how someone treats janitors or the busboy, or the nurse, whoever, these people that are low status, but they're doing things that are very important for society to move forward, right? Plumbers, right? I was just going to say we'd be in a world of shit if it wasn't for plumbers, which is kind of metaphorical, but actually, no, it's just stating a plain fact. But it's the same idea, right? Thelema, would it have ever occurred without Rose, Mrs. Crowley? I don't think so. I don't think you can make a good argument for that. But a lot of people don't kind of take that on board and let that, as this phrase goes, let that sink in. And think about, well, what does this mean for me going forward as a practitioner? Anyway, I have talked probably more than enough, but thank you for letting me get this off my chest. I always feel like that's my thing. And yeah, I will link to Lynn's very short and concise video below, but also I think she's a great person to subscribe to online. And yeah, just hang tough and stay true to your principles.